To do so, click on the interpretation icon in your Zoom toolbar. It may look like a globe. Once you join the Spanish channel, we recommend you shut off the main audio so you only hear the Spanish translation. We'll make this announcement just after the call to order and roll call as well under housekeeping. Charles, can you repeat that for us, please?
Para los recién llegados a la reunión, la interpretación en español está disponible y las personas quienes desean escuchar en español pueden pasar al canal de español. Para cambiar de canal, haga clic en el icono de interpretación ubicado en la barra de herramientas de Zoom. Parece un globo terráqueo. Ya que se una al canal de español, recomendamos que apaguen su micrófono para poder escuchar la interpretación claramente. Pronto vamos a repetir este anuncio.
Thank you.
All right, Madam City Clerk, it's 4 o'clock and I recognize a quorum of the council. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order and let's take the roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Tibbetts?
Here.
Councilmember Schwedhelm?
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer? Councilmember Fleming? Councilmember Alvarez?
Present.
Councilmember Fleming, have you joined us? Councilmember Sawyer, have you joined us?
Here.
Vice Mayor Rogers?
Present.
Mayor Rogers?
Here.
Councilmember Fleming?
I see her trying to comment.
Okay. Well, because we can see her, I'm going to mark all council members are present for the record.
Great, thank you so much. For today's meeting, we do have interpreter services that are being provided in Spanish. Madam Host, can you please explain how folks can access that portion of the meeting?
Mayor, will do. For those just joining the meeting, live translation is available via Zoom in Spanish. And if you wish to join the Spanish channel, you can click on the interpretation icon in your Zoom toolbar. It looks like a globe. Once you join the Spanish channel, we recommend you shut off the main audio so you only hear the Spanish translation.
Para los recién llegados a la reunión, la interpretación en español está disponible y las personas quienes desean escuchar en español pueden pasar al canal de español. Para cambiar de canal, haga clic en el icono de interpretación ubicado en la barra de herramientas de Zoom. Parece en globo terráqueo. Ya que se una al canal de español, recomendamos que apaguen su micrófono para poder escuchar la interpretación claramente.
Okay, we have some additional housekeeping just as a reminder for city council members to go ahead and keep your audio on mute unless it is your turn to speak. You will be able to unmute yourself, so just watch and make sure that you've done so before you start trying to ask some questions. Staff will remain muted until they're called upon as well. Folks in the public who are joining the meeting will be participating as attendees. Their microphones and cameras will be muted, and only today's panelists will be viewed during the meeting. If you're calling in from a telephone and choose to speak during the public comments portion of today's agenda, the host will be renaming your viewable phone number to resident with the last 4 digits of the phone number. We'll call on you during public comment. Now, Madam City Clerk, can you please walk us through how folks can participate during public comment and other portions of today's meeting?
Yes. After each agenda item is presented, the mayor will ask for council comments and then open it up for public comment. The host in Zoom will be lowering all hands until public comment is open for the agenda item. Once the mayor has called for public comment, the mayor will announce for public to raise their hand if they wish to speak on the specific agenda item. If you are calling in to listen to the meeting audibly, you can dial *9 to raise your hand. The mayor will then call on the public who have raised their hands. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, and a timer will appear on the screen for the council and the public to see. Once all live public comments have been heard, the meeting host will play voicemail public comments. If you provide a live public comment on an agenda item, but also submitted an email, e-comment, or recorded a voice message public comment, your email, e-comment, or voice message public comment will not be duplicated, read, or played during the meeting. There are 2 public comment periods on today's agenda to speak on non-agenda matters, items 13 and 17. This is a time when any person may address the council on matters not listed on this agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Throughout today's agenda, when the mayor calls for public comment, an interpreter will be prepared to assist anyone needing interpretation. Those using interpreter support will be afforded additional time for your public comment as required by the Brown Act. We ask that those listening on the Spanish channel but wishing to make a public comment to turn off leave interpretation entirely at the time you hear your name called so that you can join the main channel to make your public comment and translate it into English. This icon may look like a circle with an ES in the middle and the word Spanish underneath. You can then rejoin the Spanish channel at the conclusion of your comment to continue listening to the meeting in Spanish. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie. We don't have any study sessions today. Sue, do we have any report out from our closed session?
Yes, the council met in closed session and discussed item 2.1. The council gave direction to the city's risk manager and to legal counsel. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We don't have any proclamations or presentations either. So Mr. City Manager, do you want to go on to staff briefings?
Yes, we have one staff briefing this evening, item 7.3, glass fire recovery update. And I will be turning it over to Paul Lowenthal.
Good evening, Mayor Rogers, Vice Mayor Rogers, member of the council. Relatively quick update for you tonight. Following up on the mayor's request for any assistance needed with our abatement deadline set forth for all properties to be completed. We're right now looking pretty good. We just sent another round of letters out to our parcels that are still in the cleanup process, but we'll definitely reach out and utilize council members if needed, as similar to what we did back in 2017. Our first home is under construction now. We have another home into the permit process, and we are up to 8 private debris removals completed. So everything's progressing relatively smoothly on both the state and private side, and things are starting to clean up quickly. 2 other quick items to note. The first one is regarding the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission. City staff did meet with the California Public Utilities Division's Safety and Enforcement team. There was a tour that took place both in partnership with Napa County, Sonoma County, and us that toured some of the areas to look to address some of our concerns. So at this point right now, we're looking forward to future discussions with them. Also quickly with PG&E, we are continuing to work with PG&E and communicate with them. And as more information becomes available, we will share it with council. And that does it for us right now is with the glass fire update.
All right, council, is there any questions for Paul? All right, I'm not seeing any. Thanks, Paul. Do we have any public comment that's on this item?
For members of the public wishing to make a public comment, please raise your hand now via Zoom. Dial *9 if you're participating by telephone.
All right, I'm not seeing any hands. Do we have any voicemail public comments?
That we do. One moment.
Items 7.1, .2, and .3. Dwayne DeWitt from Roseland. The COVID situation may be improving if people are paying attention to the guidelines. One would hope the city's community engagement program would be actively participating in explaining the guidelines to the public through traditional methods, because many people, especially the lower income disadvantaged residents in neighborhoods such as Roseland and South Park, do not use the internet or these things called smartphones. They use old-fashioned phones, but they could read notices and flyers. The unfortunate thing during this 1 year that the city has exclusive approach towards getting information to people has been that many people are not able to participate and understand what's going on with the COVID guidelines, with the city's community engagement, if there even is true, authentic, realistic community engagement occurring. Not very many people are actually participating in these things you call Zoom meetings, which are a form of virtual exclusion, keeping people out. Please utilize the COVID guideline necessities that need to be shared with the public in an authentic community engagement approach. Use public service announcements on the radio, local television, and get out posters and flyers to the parks. There's a bulletin board at the Roseland Village Shopping Center set up with taxpayers' money. It's not used. You got all these people there in that little pop-up outdoor taco trucks and the other things that are there. People not observing any kind of social distancing. It's all just essentially fake what's going on. People just doing what they want to do. And unless we get a handle on this, COVID could come back before and stronger than expected. Thank you for your help.
Mayor, that concludes the voice message public comments received on item 7, staff briefings.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go on to item 8, city manager and city attorney reports.
I have a report. City infrastructure projects receive top honors. I'm pleased to announce that the city of Santa Rosa has been recognized as this year's top winner in the 2021 Outstanding Local Streets and Road Projects Award. Overall winner honors were claimed by the Fulton Road Reconstruction Project, Occidental Road to West 3rd Street, Additionally, the flashing yellow left turn arrow retrofit was selected as the winner of the Safety Intelligent Transportation Systems project. These honors were received from the League of California Cities, County Engineers Association of California, and the California State Association of Counties. Counties and cities throughout California were recognized for creative, cost-effective programs that improve local streets, roads, and bridges. This is the third award recognition the city has received for the Fulton Road Reconstruction project. The project repaired 3,200 linear feet of 4-lane roadway and bike lanes utilizing concrete pavement rather than asphalt pavement. Concrete technology is proving to be less costly, longer lasting, and requiring less lifetime maintenance than asphalt pavement. In spring 2020, the flashing yellow left turn arrow retrofit updated 37 signalized intersections with 134 new flashing yellow arrow signal heads. The new flashing yellow lights assembly has shown to be much more effective in terms of response to the display, crash reduction, reduced delay and congestion, and reduced driver frustration. I congratulate the Transportation and Public Works Capital Project Engineering team, traffic engineering, and everyone involved in these innovative and sustainable city infrastructure projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Madam City Attorney?
I do not have a report this afternoon. Thank you.
Okay. Council members, do we have any statements of abstention? I'm seeing none. All right, we'll go on to council member reports. Who wants to start? Councilmember Fleming? We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Great. I wanted to announce for the general plan update that I will be appointing Gary Wysocki to that group. Thank you.
Councilmember Swedhelm?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. First, I want to start off by recognizing and complimenting the city manager for making a fabulous choice with this, for the Santa Rosa Fire Chief. I know Scott has got some huge shoes to fill following Chief Gosner, but Scott is, I believe, the right person for the position. So thank you, Mr. City Manager, and congratulations, Mr. Rustrup, for your well-deserved promotion. And then last week, I attended our Groundwater Sustainability Agency Board of Directors meeting. A couple things to update. First of all, we had a changing of the guard, changing of officers. I was selected to be the new chair, and Council Member Susan Harvey from the City of Cotati is the vice chair. I am filling the role formerly held by Supervisor Hopkins. And I want to thank Supervisor Hopkins for leading us through the first couple years of our existence. We also did some update on an outreach to residential well owners. As part of our GSA outreach to residential well owners, the board received an update on input and concerns from rural residential well owners regarding groundwater management in the Santa Rosa Plain groundwater basin. Response and participation was better than expected, and the board gave direction that multiple focus groups should be created to refine this input. We also did a review of the draft groundwater sustainability plan elements. The board received updates and provided feedback on the development of a projected groundwater supply and demand budget for a 50-year planning horizon and 2 sustainable management criteria related to groundwater levels and long-term storage of the basin. I'm going to continue to update this body with the progress of this because the groundwater sustainability plan needs to be to the state of California in January of next year, which seems so far in the distance, but it's moving rapidly. And as we've all experienced come the fire season, a lot of times resources are gone elsewhere. So we're trying to have as many meetings as we have to so that we get this plan on time. And also there is no leeway with a due date. It's actually part of the legislation has to be in. And lastly, we received a receipt and acceptance of the 2019-2020 financial audit for the Joint Powers Authority. The independent auditor did not identify any deficiencies in accounting protocols for previous fiscal year 2019-2020. That's it for the GSA. And then regarding the continuum of care, we did have a meeting last week also, but we did not make any decisions. We carried over one significant item. Back in Governor Brown's last budget, they allocated what's called the HEAP funds. And currently Sonoma County has approximately $570,000 of funding still available that needs to be spent by June of this year or gets returned to the state. So all of the service providers, including the city of Santa Rosa, have been made aware of that. And on March 24th, we will make those allocations for those funding. And that's it for my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for the report, Council Member, and thank you for your service and for taking over as the chair. I'm looking forward to more updates as we get a little bit closer. Council Member Sawyer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to echo Councilmember Schwedhelm's congratulations to Scott, our new fire chief, and we continue to be in great hands. And also, I want thanks to the team that went through the interview process, and congratulations, Mr. City Manager, on a great choice. I know we will not be disappointed. It's good to be able to encourage and to respect the work of our internal candidates, especially when put up against a national search. So job well done. Secondly, the Benevale Golf Course Ad Hoc Committee met on Tuesday, March 9th to discuss how to proceed with evaluation of the course. The committee unanimously agreed that given the significant public feedback and concerns, as well as the need to focus on more significant citywide issues, staff should not proceed with conducting an evaluation of the Benevale Golf Course that includes any real estate transactions. However, given the need to hear a comprehensive report, the committee members were appreciative that staff aired this alternative option for consideration, as the focus will continue to be on the long-term financial stability of the golf course. The committee directed staff to begin preparing a comprehensive operational evaluation of the golf enterprise with a focus on presenting a financially constrained proposal to council in advance of releasing a solicitation for a new operator in early 2022. Key aspects of this operational evaluation will include the enterprise will pay for itself, evaluate the financing and prepayment options for the bond debt, to incorporate all deferred and long-term maintenance, and consider the single operator for the golf course and restaurant. Staff and Councilmember Tibbetts, as the staff and appointed Councilmember Tibbetts, and he agreed to be our ad hoc council liaison. He has begun his work with the Community Action Group to gain a better understanding of their concerns, interests, and their recommendations. The next Benevale Golf Course Ad Hoc Committee meeting will be at the end of the month, tentatively scheduled for March 31st. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Council Member. So I have a number of items to update folks on. First, I wanted to start with a couple of congratulations. I too wanted to welcome the new chief who has been serving in that capacity in an interim role for a while, but even before that has been with our city for 21 years and is very well known and very highly regarded amongst our staff and amongst our community. So welcome, Chief. Thank you for taking on that duties. I also wanted to extend a congratulations to Councilmember Tibbetts and his wife, Allie, who are proud new parents here. And I hear from Councilmember Tibbetts, he's getting a lot of sleep these days. Pretty excited for him and for that. And can't wait until the pandemic is over so that we can see Jack carrying around a baby at City Hall, which is something I think we all were able to picture even before this. Next, I want to update council on a couple of different meetings that have happened since we last met. First, the Regional Climate Protection Authority meeting last week. We did advance the climate mobilization strategy. It is a 4-tiered approach towards reaching carbon neutrality throughout our community. It focuses on decarbonization, carbon sequestration and ecosystem services, resilience and adaptation, and then equity and community engagement. Following that meeting, we did have our Climate Action Subcommittee meeting where, among other things, we discussed additional items to be brought before that body over the course of this next year. We did prioritize having a study session on the climate mobilization strategy in consult with RCPA as well as some of our community partners to really align our efforts with the strategies that are being rolled out regionally. We also advanced the food wares ordinance that this council saw and needed a little bit of additional input on. That'll be coming back to us for approval. That was advanced unanimously by the subcommittee. And then finally, you might have seen that the city of Petaluma became the first city in the nation to ban new gas infrastructure, new gas stations. That is set to be discussed in our subcommittee at the next meeting as well. So they beat us to it, but it's something that we've had on the agenda for a little while. And I know folks are really interested in having that conversation and what that looks like. We had Sonoma Clean Power. Sonoma Clean Power just launched a new program for Sonoma Clean Power residents to help get 200 folks on electric bicycles. So it's a new low-income program to help folks with the costs of that e-bikes. If you know anybody who's interested, go ahead and push them to the Sonoma Clean Power website, where I'm sure they're getting a lot of interest. We also had long-term finance, where we had a budget update that'll be coming to council in May. And we also had open government, where we received an update on the implementation of our sunshine ordinance, and that will also be coming to council here shortly this month as well. Last things are a couple of appointments. I want to thank Councilmember Schwedhelm for agreeing to help lay out our goals into a timeline that we can bring to council for approval. I'm also going to be appointing Laura Fennell to the Cultural Heritage Board. She currently serves and is willing to continue to serve, as well as Logan Pitts to the Board of Community Services, effective immediately. With that, we'll see if there are any public comments on council member updates. I'm not seeing any. Stephanie, did we have any pre-recorded public comments?
Mayor, we did not have any public comments on item 10.
Great, thank you so much. We'll move on to item 11, it's approval of minutes. We have 3 sets here, council. July 21st, July 21st of 2020, February 23rd of 2021, and then March 2nd of 2021 as well. Were there any proposed amendments to those 3 sets of minutes? Councilmember Schwedhelm?
Not really much of an amendment, but on the March 20 or the March 2nd meeting, there's a conflict between what time the meeting started and when you called the meeting to order. If we just be consistent with whichever time that was. I believe it was 2:30, and I don't think he called the meeting to order at 2:04.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Schwedhelm. I will make that correction.
Great, and Councilmember Sawyer?
Thank you, Mayor. I failed to mention the need for an abstention on the March 2nd regular meeting, 11.3. I was not in attendance.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. And then I know we do have a number of public comments on these items as well. So let's go ahead and listen to public comment and then we'll bring it back. If you're interested in providing a live public comment before we go to our voicemail public comments, go ahead and hit the raise hand feature on Zoom. All right, seeing none, let's go to our pre-recorded voicemail comments.
Hi, my name is Catherine Dodd. I'm a registered nurse and I'm representing the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments, ANNE. I'm commenting on item number 11.1, approval of minutes for the July 21st, 2020 City Council meetings. I realize that Vice Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Alvarez were not on the council at that time and will not be voting, but I hope they will review the public comments in the minutes regarding item 3.2, wireless small cell development on city-owned streetlights and joint utility poles. In that meeting, I commented on the importance of not signing multi-year master lease agreements because technology is changing so quickly and we're learning more about the dangers of wireless exposure every day. Already, technology allows small cells to be changed to higher frequency without additional approval, using more electricity and increasing emissions. Also, since that July meeting, Santa Rosa has signed multi-year master agreements. I want to associate Annie with the remarks of Safe Tech Santa Rosa members and with the national experts who took time to testify at the meeting, specifically Theodora Scarrato from the Environmental Health Trust, who provided research documenting the adverse impact of 5G radiation on the environment, Kurt Cobb from SafeG, who explained that wire technology is faster, safer, and uses less electricity, which I might emphasize is very relevant today as the newly passed federal COVID rescue funds come to cities to build back better. It's time for municipal internet in Santa Rosa as a public utility to bridge the digital divide, save electricity, and make money for the city. Lastly, Dr. Cindy Russell from Physicians for Safe Technology, who highlighted the health effects of radio frequency radiation and urged the council to pass a strong urgency ordinance to protect the health and safety of the public by prohibiting small cell towers. All of these comments are even more relevant today than they were in July. Please pass an urgency ordinance that protects Santa Rosans. Please do not sign master agreements that are longer than 3 years. Please invest in municipal wired internet with the federal rescue funding. And please act in the public's interest, not telecoms. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Teresa Amelia from Grayton. I'm speaking about item number 11.1. We really cannot have small cell antennae all around us. We're already getting sickened by the amount of electromagnetic frequency radiation that is inflicted on us. And the FCC does nothing to protect us, nor does the EPA, even though there has been research done decades ago that proved that electromagnetic frequency is dangerous for health, human health, animal health, bees, birds, trees, all of us. So please do not let 5G be rolled out in Sonoma County anywhere. Please look to the research of Dr. Beverly Rubik, R-U-B-I-K. She has done huge research that shows that human blood, which is rich in iron, is badly affected by electromagnetic frequency and has the same electromagnetic frequency has the effect on the blood that is the same condition of the worst COVID cases. So blood clotting, low circulation, inability for the blood to carry oxygen, and death. Please stop this insanity. I thank you so much.
Madam City Clerk, are the rest of the comments about the minutes or are they about small cell?
They are about the minutes from 11.1, July 21st item, the small cell item specifically related or on that July 21st agenda.
Okay, Madam City Attorney, just as a question, none of these comments seem to be about changes to the minutes. They seem to be relitigating the discussion that happened in that meeting. Should we hold these comments until the non-agenda item portion of the meeting, or do we just allow them to keep going on the minutes?
I would recommend that you allow them to proceed on the minutes. That's how they identified their comments, and it does connect up with the meeting.
Okay,
that would be my recommendation at this point.
Okay, we'll keep pushing forward. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Laporta with Safe Tech for Santa Rosa. My comment is for item 11.1, approval of minutes from July 21st, 2020 meeting, in which there were at least 38 people who spoke out against the unchecked permitting of wireless transmission facilities. The Telecommunications Act of 1996, or TCA, explicitly preserved to local governments the general authority to regulate the placement of wireless transmission facilities, or WTFs, under subparagraph A of the TCA. If your municipal attorney tells you that your hands are tied, you need to get a telecommunications attorney who has done the research. The key to preserving local control is to enact local zoning provisions that have permit requirements for WTF. Most local governments do not have procedural guidelines to understand how to comply with the 5 procedural requirements for TCA imposes upon them. Under subparagraph B, there are 5 procedural requirements, which most local governments violate simply because they don't know what they are. In the WTF application that renowned telecommunications attorney Andrew Campanelli has reviewed all over the U.S., 90% submit false or misleading information. For example, false propagation maps, false FCC compliance reports, false real estate appraisal reports, misleading visual analysis, etc. The problem is there's no guidance in the code to show the planning board how to recognize when an FCC compliance report is false. Mr. Campanelli has seen applicants in local governments, and then when they get their approval, they snicker at how gullible the local planning board was. We need a telecommunications lawyer to look at the ordinance to vest it with the maximum power for this city. Why did you sign the master license agreement with AT&T in the past few months while our telecommunications ordinance has not yet been completed? That's working booty backward. We need to protect residential areas, schools, daycares, parks, and walking trails from these WTF. Has AT&T or Verizon seen the draft ordinance? What about we the people? We are your taxpayers, not big telecom. We'd like to see the draft and be part of the team helping to write the best ordinance. Thank you very much. We do not consent to be guinea pigs in this massive science experiment of 5G, 4G, and all the pulse microwave radiation that emanates from it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Laporta, and I'm with Safe Tech for Santa Rosa. My comment is for item 11.1, approval of minutes from the July 21st, 2020 meeting. There were lots and lots of people who spoke out against the unchecked permitting of wireless transmission facilities, cell towers, including Theodora Scarrato, Executive Director of the Environmental Health Trust, who provided research documenting the adverse impact of 5G radiation on the environment. Also, Kurt Cobb, Program Director for SafeG, who explained that wired technology is faster, safer, and uses electricity, a lot less of it. This is the time for municipal internet as a public utility to bridge the digital divide and make money for the city using fiber to the premises. And then there's Cindy Russell, MD, Executive Director for Physicians for Safe Technology, who outlined the health effects of RFR, radio frequency radiation, and urged the council to pass a strong urgency ordinance to protect the health and safety of the public by prohibiting small cell towers, or at least highly regulating them. I know you guys have been working on this ordinance for a long time, but please finish this darn thing and bring it to the council for a vote before any other telecoms slip around the back door and get you to approve their plans like AT&T has done. Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Julia Ross, and I'm calling about agenda item 11.1, the approval of the minutes regarding the small cell policy. Very important to many of us, and we hope that you will give it the attention that it needs today. Thank you so much.
My name is Sydney Cox, and this comment is for agenda 11.1, approval of minutes from the July 21st, 2020 council meeting. The agenda item for those minutes was 3.2, wireless small cell deployment on city-owned streetlights and joint utility poles. While I can appreciate the difficulties of condensing public record comments to only one sentence, I noticed several inaccuracies in the minutes that I think should be corrected. Please make these corrections regarding the summary of comments. The spelling of Theodora Scarrato's last name, who is Executive Director of Environmental Health Trust, should be corrected, and the summary of her recorded voice comment should more accurately state the following. Quote, Theodora Scarrato Executive Director of Environmental Health Trust, submitted comments on the extensive research that documents the adverse ecological effects of 4G and previous generations of cell tower emissions, especially on birds, bees, and trees, with additional warnings about potential adverse effects of 5G. And Cindy Russell's summary should include that she is a doctor and Executive Director of Physicians for Safe Technology. Her comments should more accurately state the following. Quote, Dr. Cindy Russell, Executive Director of Physicians for Safe Technology, submitted comment on the research that wireless technology is a proven environmental and human toxin and registered her opposition to the densification of wireless tower and small cell placement in our communities, urging the Council to pass a strong urgency ordinance to protect the health, safety, and privacy of the public. And here it is, March 16th, 2021. In the past 8 months, we still do not have an approved small cell ordinance/policy, although I understand one has been drafted and is being reviewed. Please let the public know the status of this policy. That ordinance will affect the placement of small cells on city-owned light poles as well as PG&E poles for decades to come. And once installed, telecom can upgrade them at any point with more transformers and higher emissions and no oversight. It is disturbing that there has been so much pressure put on the city by AT&T and Verizon during the past 2 years, with hundreds of communications between these companies and the city regarding installations of their wireless facilities. I ask that you, the city of Santa Rosa, please take about 15 minutes of your time to view 3 short videos by attorney Andrew Campanelli. Can be found at safetech4santarosa.org. Number 4, safetech4santarosa.org. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Isaiah. I'm calling in regards to agenda item 11.1, approval of minutes from July 21, 2020 meeting. The public needs to know the status of the city's small cell policy, needs to know the date of a council vote, and needs to see the actual policy. Thank you. Have a good day.
Hi, my name is Miss Anna Har. I'm calling about agenda item 11.1, approval of minutes from July 21st, 2020 meeting. The public needs to know the status of the city's small cell policy, needs to know the date of a council vote, needs to see the actual policy. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sherry Noonan. I'm calling with regards to agenda item 11.1, approval of minutes from July 21st, 2020 meeting. I believe the public needs to know the status of the city's small cell policy, and we need to know the date of a council vote and to see the actual policy. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Mayor, that concludes public comment received on item 11. Mayor, you're muted.
Yep. We'll bring it back to council. So I heard one correction from Councilmember Schwethelm regarding the time of the meeting starting. Anybody have any additional corrections? Councilmember Fleming.
Yes, thank you. I need to abstain from the March 2 minutes as well. I'm sorry that I didn't notify you earlier because I was not present at that meeting.
Okay. Madam Vice Mayor?
Eddie and I need to abstain from the July 21, 2020 minutes.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is showing the minutes adopted with the correction from Councilmember Schwethelm, with the Vice Mayor and Councilmember Alvarez abstaining from item 11.1, and Councilmembers Sawyer and Fleming abstaining from item 11.3. Without any objection, we'll show that adopted. Great. We'll move on to item 12, the consent calendar.
Item 12, resolution, approval of the use of State of California Calnet contract for continued purchase and use of Verizon cellular wireless equipment and service. Item 12.2, resolution, authorization of the examination of taxation, sales, and use tax records. Item 12.3, resolution, approval of agreements with the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration for the administration of ordinance number ORD-2020-018-A, the extension of 2 quarter-cent general sales tax known as Measure Q. Item 12.4, resolution, Courthouse Square Bollard scope addition approval and contingency action. Item 12.5, resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa authorizing a request for an estimated $205,427 in low carbon transit operations program, LCTOP, annual formula allocation funding for 2020-2021. Item 12.6, resolution authorizing the filing and execution of an application for funding from the Federal Transit Administration Low or No Bus Emission Program for fiscal year 2020-2021 and committing any necessary matching funds. Item 12.7, resolution of the City of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving the project list and authorization to apply for the annual formula allocation for fiscal year 2021-22 State of Good Repair Program. Item 12.8, resolution, Transportation Development Act, Article 4, and State Transit Assistance Annual Formula Allocation Claims Submittal. Item 12.9, resolution, contract award, weed and rubbish abatement services. Item 12.10, resolution, approval of the First Amendment to the agreement for the use of modular temporary fire station between the Menlo Park Fire Protection District and the City of Santa Rosa, approval for an additional 2-year extension and authorization for the city manager to execute all documents.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Council, do we have any questions on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to public comment on those items. If you're interested in providing a public comment on any of our consent calendar items, go ahead and hit the raise hand feature on your Zoom. All right, seeing none, Madam City Clerk, did we have any pre-recorded voicemail public comments?
Coming right up.
Consent items 12.6, 0.7, and 0.8. Dwayne DeWitt from Roseland. Congratulations to the bus drivers of the Santa Rosa bus system for their steadfast work during the 1 year of the pandemic that we've had them helping as essential workers. It's an important thing to keep a bus system operating, but at the same time, it needs to be a cost-effective and efficient system. Currently, the Santa Rosa City bus system uses massive buses that only have a few people on them at any given time. And I don't think the pandemic is going to go away soon, and traffic is going to return to the bus systems. Essentially, rather than just trying to purchase new large buses and go for more taxpayers' money, it would be prudent and fiscally frugal to go after smaller buses with shorter routes. You have a bus system that is far-flung with few people traveling long distances for very little money, all pretty much supported by the taxpayers. Taxpayers need to be treated better, please. In these items that you're seeking taxpayers' money for, begin to make a plan for smaller bus system, with shorter routes, and more frequent on the important routes where you actually get a lot of passengers. An audit needs to be done of just how much passenger traffic is occurring and where those routes are and what's going forward. With your help, we could save taxpayers money and actually get a better bus system out of it, keep our good drivers employed, moving forward in a progressive manner. Folks aren't going to go back to the buses that quick. They like having their social distance in their own cars. All the best to you.
Mayor, that concludes public comment on item 12.
Great, thank you so much. So council, we cannot start our next item until 5 o'clock. So we'll go ahead and take a temporary recess. We'll come back at 5 o'clock on the dot for item 14.1.
Mayor, we need to vote on the consent.
Thank you. Jumping the gun a little bit. I apologize. Madam Vice Mayor, go ahead and make your motion.
I move items 12.1 through 12.10 and waive for the reading of the text.
Second.
Okay, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Can you clarify who seconded? Was it Councilmember Schwedhelm?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. And the vote, Councilmember Tibbetts?
Aye.
Councilmember Schwedhelm?
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rogers?
Aye.
Mayor Rogers?
Aye.
That motion passes with 7 ayes.
Great. Thank you. Now, council, we will recess and then we'll come back for public comment for non-agenda items at 5 o'clock, and then we'll do item 14.1. All right, Madam City Clerk, it's 5 o'clock. Let's go ahead and resume the meeting. Do you want to call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Tibbetts?
Here.
Councilmember Schwedhelm?
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer?
Here.
Councilmember Fleming? Councilmember Fleming? Councilmember Alvarez?
Present.
Vice Mayor Rogers?
Present.
Mayor Rogers?
Here.
Councilmember Fleming, have you joined us?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let the record show that all council members are present.
Great. Let's go back to item 13. That's public comment for non-agenda items. If you're interested in speaking, go ahead and hit the raise hand feature on your Zoom. We'll start with Alex.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Hi, council member. Sorry, I'm just stepping out. I'm working right now. I wanted to make a comment here really quickly. Mayor Rogers, a couple weeks ago, you had asked the city manager for an update on the wireless telecommunications ordinance, and that so you could get back to us, but we still haven't heard anything. And I just want to say this whole experience has been kind of frustrating for me, really doing a community grassroots kind of work to raise awareness. And you know, you guys have heard hundreds of comments from the public, from the vast majority of people who are going to have a cell phone tower put in front of their house or their school, didn't want it. Mr. Tibbetts, we had a meeting last year, which I had never heard a follow-up. But you told me personally that you would chop it down if they put it in front of your house. And clearly, the sentiment from the council has been to create as much local control as possible. And, you know, it just seems like the city manager, who I don't know who he's accountable to, a non-elected official, and from my perspective, he kind of treats you guys as just a formality. And I get a condescending tone, and I hope that that's not inappropriate to say. It probably doesn't help my cause, but it's just very frustrating. And it seems like this is just like a kind of democratic, you know, farce, and he just gets to go back and do whatever he wants. So hopefully we could hear something. You guys approved the minutes from our 4th study session on the topic that was back in July 2020. Hopefully you can go back and read through some of those for the new council members as well. And, you know, I just hope you guys can do the right thing. You know, Jack, you also told me that I think Verizon sends you a campaign check every year, right, in the mail. And you guys are business partners. You know, we've gotten a couple updates here and there, doing a public records request. AT&T and Verizon has had hundreds and hundreds of communications with the city and their staff. You know, there is a policy draft, I hear. We have no idea what it says, but guess who has gotten a copy of the draft and seen it? AT&T and Verizon. So let's just try to make this for your constituents. And I promise you, I will be back on the street once you start putting these things up and raising awareness and letting people know what's coming to their neighborhoods. Yeah, anyways, Mayor Rogers, hopefully you can give me an update on that policy like you had asked the city manager for a couple weeks ago. So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Alex. And I'll comment after we finish our public comment here. Madam City Clerk, do we have any voicemail public comments?
Yes, we do, Mayor. One moment.
Hello, my name is Amanda Hopkins. This is a comment for agenda item 12 on the meeting for March 16th for open comment. And so I want to comment regarding
the 9th Street overpass in Santa Rosa, near 9th Street and Davis Street. There is an ongoing homeless encampment there. I have been in contact with city council members as well as with the Catholic Charities. And I was surprised to hear that the Catholic Charities shelter just about a block and a half away has shelter beds available. And their team has been going to the overpass and speaking to the folks that are living there and offering them shelter beds. And many of the people have refused to accept this offer and don't want to move. I also know that there are several people in RVs, and I've, excited to hear about the legal RV encampments. And so I'm just wondering, since there are options of shelter beds and places where people can legally camp with RVs, why aren't these people being asked to move and given some kind of penalty or fine or some kind of something for them to make sure that they're not living there, because they have other places to be where they can receive services and receive help and receive better care. And so I'm just, I'm really concerned. This group has brought in, has attracted drug dealers. I hear shouts and screams and cussing and people having mental breakdowns on a regular basis because I live very close to this overpass, and it's not acceptable. And pretty soon, I know that the schools will be going back to in-person. We have a school, an elementary school, less than a block away from this overpass. So I don't think that having these folks here, as well as the drug dealers that they attract and the mental breakdowns that they go through, is safe for.
Item 13, public comment on non-agenda items. Dwayne DeWitt from Roseland. A big thank you to the Recreation and Parks staff, the maintenance people who've been coming out and helping at Southwest Community Park and Bayer Farm, the two newer parks, if you will, in Roseland. The small park on South Davis has also been getting their attention. It's been there since Highway 101 was built. The thing that's really important here is to give recognition to those employees who are going out and actually doing the work to make our public facilities better for the taxpayers. At the big storm that occurred about 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, large branch, easily 6 inches in diameter, big thick one, got knocked off of a tree and was blocking the sidewalk. It was too heavy to pull to the side. While trying to do that, one of the park's workers came to help me. We got it off to the side, and he said he would call to get someone over to take care of the rest of the debris. Within an hour and a half, they'd had a person out there cutting up the big branch and the smaller ones, getting it all chipped up and cleaning off the area. That was wonderful work. It was so great to see that quick response. It's really important because just to the west, on the dirt parking lot at Southwest Community Park, where we were told in the community 20 years ago it could not be used for any improvements because of California tiger salamanders, the city has been staging construction from there and allowing others to rent the area, perhaps, but at least stage the smart trail work near the Hearn Avenue rail crossing. So it makes us wonder what's happening with that whole thing on California tiger salamanders and the public involvement. Secondary to that, we can't get responses from the city's millionaire bureaucrats at the top of those departments, the recreation and parks people. Leave numerous messages, hear nothing back about the permits for doing that work, for allowing work on that California tiger salamander area. It's really important to hear back from those highly paid management people. Numerous calls get us nowhere. So right now I am going to leave my telephone number, 575-5549. Perhaps I can get a call back from somebody at the city so we can find out what's really going on with the California tiger salamander permits, with the city and the way it's handling permits, the cutting down of trees without permits, the activity that occurs on city-owned land. Give us some news to use. Again, Dwayne at 575-5549. Good day to you.
Mayor, that concludes voice message public comments on non-agenda matters.
Great, thanks, Dina. And just to answer the question that was presented in public comment here, we do have in the coming months, the next few months, the ordinance coming forward. We don't have an exact date yet because we haven't finished our work plan for this year. That'll be finalized here in the next couple of weeks as well. But it was not listed as one of the tier 1 priorities for this council when we did goal setting last month. So we'll be figuring out how to fit it in along with all of the additional work that we have asked staff to do. Mr. City Manager, did you have anything to add?
Nothing to add. I just want to make sure all the city council saw the email providing an update, a very thorough update by Mr. Osborne back on 2/12. I will resend that email. It's a very thorough and an informative response, but I will make sure that gets resent to council very, very shortly.
Great. And Councilmember Tibbetts?
Thanks, Mayor. Hopefully this doesn't wade into Brown Act territory, but for the benefit of the public, I wanted to ask the question, because I do see them coming to our public comment periods time and again. We are not currently placing 5G towers on our poles until that ordinance comes back, correct?
I will have staff answer that. We're not prepared. Obviously, it's not an agendized item.
Sure.
I'll get the response, and then we're taking down your question, council member, and make sure you get a response.
Yeah, I think if we can't do it today, maybe at the next council meeting, if it's the will of the mayor and you Mr. City Manager, to just bring that one answer, it might be helpful, because I think some folks are worried about what's going on.
I understand the desire, and we will try to address it.
Okay. Thanks, council member. Any other comments? All right, let's move on to item 14.1.
Good evening, Mayor Rogers, Vice Mayor Rogers, members of the council. My name is Paul Lowenthal, Assistant Fire Marshal with the Fire Department. Tonight, I bring forward to you a staff report that pertains to our proposed fuel mitigation pile burning. Although it is a relatively short presentation, it does have long duration impacts that are positive for our community moving forward. In August of 2020, the City Council approved our Community Wildfire Protection Plan for our community here locally, obviously. And as a result of that plan, 9 objectives were identified and 42 actionable items came with that plan. Over the last several months, you've heard from myself and other members of our departments about funding needed to accomplish a significant portion of the plan. We've been pursuing both discussions regarding PG&E settlements as well as grants. However, there are some items that we're able to work on utilizing existing staff. And this is an item that is included in the plan and that we are working to bring forward to you now. Next item, please, or next slide, please. So property owners in and around the city of Santa Rosa are continuing to work on taking measures to mitigate the risk of wildfire for our community, primarily through fuel reduction. We've been doing a significant volume of outreach directly with community members and HOA members and open space HOAs throughout our community, primarily both in Fountain Grove and in Oakmont, to continue to work to figure out ways to mitigate and make recommendations to reduce the threats to our community by removing fuels. However, as easy it is to accomplish in some parts of our community, it is proven to be very difficult in other much needed areas of Santa Rosa. Primarily where we're hearing the most of the concerns is in Fountain Grove, where organizations like their Open Space Management Association have and need to do work. However, based on the topography, they're really limited to how they can mitigate the work. In some parts of the city, it's very easy to bring a chipper in. It's easy to remove the fuels, especially when they're smaller vegetation plant types or limbing of trees. However, in areas like Fountain Grove, there are very difficult and inaccessible locations where they physically can't get the debris out. In some cases, the only area or options they've had is to physically fly it out by helicopter, like we've seen utilities or other organizations do. However, that's not feasible here locally. So that's kind of where the recommendation to move forward with a pile burning ordinance came from. Next slide. So this is an example of work that is done, and although it's relatively deceiving, this is a very steep, remote area on the backside of Fountain Grove that dips down into the Reebly Valley. So not only is it difficult to access, but cost also discourages property owners and HOAs in some cases from actually being able to physically do the work because of the need to actually remove the debris. So this highlights an area where they would benefit from the pile burning ordinance. Next slide. So our goal truly is to continue to use the Community Wildfire Protection Plan to continue to assist with treatment of vegetation throughout our community. The treatment of the vegetation primarily, and I say primarily because it does happen outside of our WUI and in the county, within the WUI can reduce the threat and risk of wildfires and ultimately the loss of property damage, so on and so forth. So as mentioned earlier, the actionable item from the CWPP to mitigate that threat is by establishing permitting protocols for the use of prescribed file burn piles within our community. So, and then straight out of our plan, it states that pile burning under appropriate weather conditions can rapidly eliminate fuel and manual or mechanical treatment activities. Pile burning is a cost-effective way to address the elimination of hazardous fuels, but requires permitting from air regulators and the Santa Rosa Fire Department. With any prescribed fire, there is a risk of potential escape from burn piles to nearby vegetation. That risk can be mitigated through a permitting process should the city adopt to move forward with adoption of the program and the permit. So, and I mentioned that because it's important to also note the narrow scope of this program. We, Sonoma County residents, are very used to seeing multiple control burns issued throughout our county. That is not the intention here. The intention here is to primarily target our larger parcels over 5 acres within our wildland interface that truly would benefit from this program. It also gives us the opportunity to designate other properties if they choose to come forward to us to be allowed to permit, to burn under 5 acres, but that is primarily because there are some parcels that are under 5 and landlocked by some of the larger parcels. So for legality purposes, it was easier to include them. And also in our plan, we've identified very specific areas where we do need to do treatment to protect our community from fire. In fact, we just actually had a meeting with CAL FIRE last week about a potential program to help offset costs of our communities to reduce the threat of fire by paying them to remove vegetation and dead trees. And that's going to be targeting actually the north side of our community because as we've seen, the continued threat to our city is from the north. It sounds like we are one of the only, if not the only city in recent years to be impacted directly and indirectly by 4 fires since 2017. So we're taking that obviously very seriously. That was relatively interesting information to have shared to us by CAL FIRE. and really highlights the importance of why we need to work towards developing these fuel breaks, working to reduce the fuels in these specific areas. Next slide. So ultimately, it is our recommendation that we do adopt the ordinance under city code, allowing for landowners to obtain a permit from the fire department to perform the pile burning to reduce the wildfire hazards. That item will come back to you as a consent item next week, at which time we look forward to potentially implementing the program. We do have heard from some of the property owners and HOA within Fountain Grove that are ready to go. One thing I want to make very clear is, again, that this is much different than the county and other districts processes where they do issue permits very regularly. Because of the narrow scope of this, we will physically be doing inspections on these properties to ensure compliance with our requirements and that they are being handled under safe conditions. And really getting our eyes on it and working directly with our property owners. We're also working on a communication strategy should this move forward. One of the concerns we've heard is obviously people concerned when they see smoke. It's important to note that this is not a burning ordinance that would be allowed year round. This is would match up with essentially CAL FIRE's burning authorization for our area. It would be limited to our essentially our off season. So we have our weed abatement season during fire season, and now potentially this burning within our winter months. When the grasses are green, the brush is relatively, hopefully more damp than it has been now with a little bit of lack of rain, but that is, again, that's ultimately our goal. And sorry, and following up, we've already put together the ability to monitor our burns. So as residents call in their burns, if it is a permissible burn day, when that address is registered through our dispatch, that address will now populate on our fire department's main webpage. So residents, if they see smoke, will actually be able to look on our website and see where the burn is located within our community and confirm that it is a burn pile and a controlled burn that has been permitted by our organization. And that is it, unless there are any questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. Councilmember Tibbetts.
Thanks, Mayor. Paul, yeah, I've got a couple of questions for you. And I'll just say right off the bat, I grew up doing burn piles. That was definitely, a way of life and easy way to get brush off your property without hauling it to the dump or something like that. But, the struggle I'm having with it as a policymaker is it's obviously kind of an archaic process in the one sense that, we've got a climate action plan. We have carbon being released into the atmosphere in a city that said that we want to curtail that. And then on the other hand, we have a fuels management ordinance, and we know that prescribed burns are going to be pretty important in our fire strategy going forward. So I'm kind of having a hard time reconciling the two a little bit. But I guess a couple of my questions are, what's the permit price going to cost? If I go to you and I want to do a burn, how much am I going to pay?
So I'll pull that up. We do have an existing burn permit fee associated with it. Our goal was actually not to charge cost associated with it because, again, this is a pretty narrow scope targeting specific properties where they really do lack the ability to easily get the fuel out. So the goal is, although we have a permit associated with this type of activity, we will not be charging for it for at least the first year to see what the impacts are on our organization.
Okay. And this ordinance, this is not, because looking at your picture was a powerful thing. You see all those felled trees from the fire, from subsequent chainsawing, and taking them down. And you are kind of looking at that going, there's no way to get those out in helicopters is not only cost inefficient, it's also a GHG contributor. So that's just not going to work. But I'm wondering, is what I'm trying to find, I guess, is there a way to, that the option for that homeowner or that HOA to get rid of those logs by any other means other than chainsawing and hauling them out with a helicopter is obviously going to be really expensive. And a permit, even an expensive permit is going to pale in comparison to the cost. And I'm just wondering if a permit fee could help us set aside a pool of funds that does more climate savvy fuels mitigation. And I'm sure the fire guys get tired of hearing about goats, but you know, could we help a program where goats are going out there and in doing, you know, grazing of those fire fuels, because you can't get a brush hog out there or a mower, but you know, we have that kind of supply. I'm just wondering about things like that. You know, I'm prepared I'll listen to the public, but I am prepared to support this tonight. But I hope we can set it up smart so that our carbon footprint that we'll be creating with this can be offset through other feasible fuels management programs that I know your office wants to promote and pay for somehow down the road. Because you know, when you look at that example in that picture, you probably have to clear that property of those large tree trunks once every 20 to 50 years or 30 to 60, right? Between that time, the question in my mind becomes, how are we going to keep that grass down? And who's going to pay for that? Or what's the penalty going to be for a homeowner that is not engaged in a good weed abatement practice in the WUI zone? So those are my thoughts. I appreciate what you brought forward. And yeah, I'll be curious to know what you think.
So I will tell you right quick, and the reason I turned around is I actually have a stack of requests on my desk right now for the use of goats. Personally, I think that we could use more in this county. I think it's become very clear that there's a desire for them. I'm looking at requests right now from our Crest Ridge, Oakmont, Meadowstone, as well as Bennett Valley, all with plans they've submitted for how they choose to use goats this year. So goats are actively being used. We are working directly with a lot of homeowners and helping encourage it because it does benefit not only our community, but the environment as well. Circling back real quick, the cost of that permit for the burning, if we choose to move forward with it after the first year, is $147 for that permit. And then regarding the comments regarding the trees. So the area that I took a picture of is actually probably the easiest of the locations that I've been asked to tour and look at. And the wood issue is a much bigger issue, and part of why we've given you some of the brief updates in some of the council meetings. But in areas like we're seeing primarily in not only the tubs, but now we've had the nuns, the tubs, and the glass fire. It's a much bigger issue that we're working to actually figure out moving forward. Our goal is to bring forward this ordinance to you first, and then we're actually going to be shifting gears and switching over to a dead and dying tree ordinance, primarily for our burn scar. It has become very clear. Myself and our chief building official, Jesse Oswald, actually just participated in another phone conversation today with some residents in the Fountain Grove area that are expressing their concerns about the decay of those fuels. So the trees that you're seeing in the picture were dropped because they did not make it through the fire. The reality is a lot of that wood, those sticks were dropped. They're dropping them for two reasons. One is they're trying to mitigate that long-term fuel load.
Sure.
And they're also trying to do their part to clean up the environment. You drive down into Cross Creek right now and you see the results of what happens when they don't try and take some of those proactive measures. And a lot of that wood is essentially rotting and dying. With the lack of our canopy in Fountain Grove, it has changed our ecology up there. Mm-hmm. So where we once had oak grass woodlands where goats could do their job, it is being drastically replaced now with invasive species and Scotch broom and other types of brush that are proving to be much more difficult and expensive to maintain. So the ordinance is an attempt to work on some of the negative impacts of what we're seeing in that area, keep our community safer. But yes, there's a much larger conversation that we're having. We are actively pursuing, in addition to the PG&E settlement funds, to mitigate some of these long-term issues. We have four different grants we're working on right now. Two of them are for totaling $5 million, and they're for fuel management along evacuation routes, and then defensible space and home hardening, all within our wild element interface. The another one to assist with some of our GIS components and education and chipping to offset chipping costs. And then that fourth one, which is probably going to be one of the more beneficial ones for what you saw in that picture, is going to be that potential grant that we're going to turn in with CAL FIRE to mitigate that risk primarily on the north and northeast side of the city, where we have the dead fuels, the dead trees, and the brush that is growing where there once was seasonal grasses. And it will be hopefully a reimbursement program where we'll be able to reimburse up to 75% of the costs that we determine per acre to those property owners to really truly start doing a lot of good work within our community to prevent repeat events of what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I'd like to tell a quick story for the council really quickly about the goats piece. You know, it was Tom, Victoria, and I, we were touring the glass fire burn scar area, and we walked up into Oakmont. And I remember Chief Gossner pointed, you know, we asked, why did the fire stop right here? And he said, well, two reasons. One is a dozer went through right here. But two, Oakmont, I think they were doing some goat grazing out here because this looks like goat grazing. And sure enough, you know, I asked the OVA and they had been. And so I think it's just going to be a way of life going forward. And to the extent that the city can help offset the costs associated with goat grazing and other forms of fire fuels management, right? Not just the cute novelty of and efficacy of goats, but you know, to the extent that we can offset that cost and help people financially access those methods, the safer we'll be. And so I think, you know, where I'm coming from, I'll throw this idea out there for you and for the council. This year, I think, you know, these burn permits should be free to help just reduce all barriers to getting rid of that dangerous heavy duty fuels, you know, coming up. But some point, whether it's a year from now or two, I'd hope to not see it farther than that. I would like to see the fire department recover costs for creating websites, monitoring websites, responding to calls, because we both know you're going to get them when some of those big burn piles go off. But then also consider, you know, a surcharge of whatever you think is necessary to create a small fund to help communities access some of these fire mitigation and fuel management strategies. But I mean, awesome stuff, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, one thing I want to circle back and really clarify is I know there's been discussions about actual prescribed fire, where you're seeing it primarily in the North County right now, where they're working with volunteer organizations and actually burning and treating acreage. That is not the intention of this ordinance. We lack a lot of the open space of that size to do that here locally. This truly is a pile burning ordinance and very specific to that. There have been prescribed fires here locally years ago. I remember, I'm not dating myself, but back in the 90s when I was a little bit younger, when we used to do them up in Annandale State Park, you know, but those type of activities have not occurred here locally. But we do continue to coordinate and communicate with the state parks of what we can do to mitigate things on that side as well.
And that's why I think your calls for service are going to be high in the first year, and there's going to be a cost with that. I know my old man and I lit off a good one out in West County, and Grayton volunteers showed up one day. So I expect that's going to happen here as well.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm wondering, I had some communication from one of my constituents about using a chipper, and I heard you mention chipping as a potential where it can be used to mitigate the fuel issue. So, Paul, would you say that the pile burning is meant for, it's kind of a last resort effort for a reduction of the fuels, and that's why it's you're expecting it to be fairly limited in those areas where there just is no other alternative?
Yeah, so there's actually only 32 parcels within our entire wildland interface that are over 5 acres. So the parcels that we're seeing that we've looked at and surveyed as we started to assess the needs for this ordinance are pretty remote. You truly are hiking into the backside of Fountain Grove, where you're dipping down and looking into the Reebly Canyon. The areas where they've been primarily accessible, where we are seeing chipping events. We've hosted chipping events here locally. So yes, I can't guarantee it's 100% of it, and I think that's part of our inspection process and our assessment of the program moving forward. But the goal is, yes, is dealing with a lot of the inaccessible locations where they truly would benefit from this and can't in some cases afford to actually have it hauled out, over 11 acres or 12 acres, it just becomes unobtainable through costs. And then if they're not doing it, they're not helping us and they're not benefiting the community. So it's kind of a balancing act right now. If we told them that you can't proceed with the burning, it's just not going to work. I'm sure there will be locations in our community where they just won't financially be able to mitigate that risk for us. So in this narrow scope, we feel that the benefits of allowing some of the pile burning kind of outweigh some of the other factors.
Thanks, Paul. And I appreciate the importance of communicating with the community when these fires are going to occur and being as clear as possible with the direction. And maybe I'm not sure what it's going to look like, what your warnings are going to look like, or your alerts are going to look like, but being as specific as possible, of course, is going to be really important. And I know I shared Councilmember Tibbetts' concerns about GHGs, and it seemed like we were trying to do the right thing, but having a bit of negative impact. But I guess better 32 smaller fires than a mountainside going up. So I understand the need, but I'm heartened to hear that it's going to be a limited application in this case. So thank you.
Yeah, the intent truly is, like I said, the intent is truly to capture that small universe. And you're right. And I think that's where a lot of these recommendations came from. Our consultants were to truly mitigate what has now happened to us a couple times from happening to us again. And we are absolutely doing everything we can to help encourage fuel removals. Again, we're applying for those grants to help offset a lot of these costs. Hopefully we'll have the PG&E settlement money so that we can start setting up chipper programs, and not just what we did in the past where we stage the location, but actually physically look to bring chippers around neighborhoods and really help truly make a difference. So we are committed to doing everything we can, understanding that this is, like you said, kind of a last ditch effort in some specific areas where the intent truly is to help mitigate that threat.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mayor. Paul, in regards to, I'm not familiar with the county's ordinance when it comes to pile burning. With the proposed ordinance that we'll be mimicking theirs, is Save the Air one of the days that we will not allow any burning to happen?
Yeah, ultimately, we'll still be following in our area. We're in the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. So yeah, there are days where their burning is not permitted based on air quality, and we will adhere to the same guidelines. So you'll have less burning within the city limits than you would in the county. And we will be adhering to the same air regulations that the rest of the jurisdictions within Sonoma County permit under.
Now, from the fires that I've seen, I definitely see the dangers of having a tree with the winds picking up and all of a sudden the embers become airborne even easier. Now, we did say that we're willing to chip the trees and leaving the chips there on the property. What's the disadvantage of cutting and leaving opposed to having cutting and then burning? Have we looked at possibly just leaving the brush behind and letting it wilter during the off season? So when the on season does come, that has been pretty much Mother Nature has taken care of it, or at the least, we do not have these standing trees where air can actually move these embers for miles, if not further.
Yeah, so a couple parts of that. So our intention is not to require the removal of every dead and dying tree within Santa Rosa. Unfortunately, wildfires are becoming more and more frequent and common throughout our state. We dodged a bullet for several years and have now taken a pretty significant beating since 2017. So dead trees locally were not something our community was accustomed to seeing. When you drive around, whether it's El Dorado County, Butte County, LA County, you see standing dead trees literally everywhere. And it's, in some cases it's natural, in some cases it's as a result of a human-caused fire. But the goal is to mitigate the dead and dying trees where there's a need. So in some cases, those trees are going to stand. They will eventually probably decay and become a fuel load that will have to at some point be addressed. But right now, those are not the priority. The priority is the ones that do present the significant concern. what we are seeing is exactly what I was trying to describe in that Cross Creek area that runs in between Mark West Springs Road and Thomas Lake Harris. Is that is a really good example of what happens when you don't dispose of your fuels. It is now becoming an additional fuel load for us. So whether we have the seasonal grasses that are cut or our invasive species or brush, when fire carries those light flashy fuels, it's going to find a lot of those down trees that were essentially killed off in our previous fire that will become an additional fuel load. So our goal under this is to reduce that fuel load to help reduce the spread of future fires here locally.
Thank you, Paul.
Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you. Paul, so we're talking here about 32 parcels total.
There are 32 parcels over 5 acres within our wildland interface. However, there are an undetermined number of parcels, probably, if I had to just guesstimate, less than a couple dozen that are potentially landlocked within some of the larger over 5 acre parcels that could potentially benefit from it. So take, for example, Fountain Grove's Open Space Management Association. You could have an area that spans 30 plus acres that's made up of an 11 acre parcel, a 9 acre parcel, and then smashed into or next to one of them is a 2.15 acre that's easily, if not more inaccessible than the other ones. We don't want to limit legally, we don't want to limit that parcel that's 2 acres just because it's not over 5 based on its location and how it's landlocked. So we added language to the ordinance to give us the discretion on a case-by-case basis to look at other parcels where treatment would be beneficial and or outlined in our plan where we actually need to do and encourage fuel reduction, but it can't be done because of accessibility issues.
Okay. Well, I understand the public policy needs to do this and the ramifications of not doing it on one hand, and I do believe they outweigh the concerns, but I'm going to echo the concerns that I've heard here and just add that, you know, we're dealing, when you said people with parcels larger than 5 acres, you know, to have a part, and then you said that they couldn't afford to take care of it. I mean, obviously the risk of them lighting on fire and catching the rest of the city is really significant, but I think that for most of us, it's unimaginable to have a 5 acre parcel within the city limits and then to not only be able to afford that, but then come to the city hat in hand asking for help to address this issue when, I mean, that it just seems to me that we ought to take care of the public good first, which is to remove the risk, the fuel and the risk, but then to have some sort of, you know, carbon offset program where we charge people the amount of money that, you know, it would cost to do the carbon offset program if they can't remove these trees another way, and to use some of that money to do enhanced, you know, goat grazing. It's really difficult for me to support burning and adding additional fuel, greenhouse gases. It's just, you know, we've got two really important goals, which are in conflict. One is to not light the city on fire, and the other is to have a city in the future. And so I just want to really strongly voice my concern, and that this has my very soft support. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Any additional comment, questions for Paul? Eddie?
Looking towards the future, are we looking to implement animals as we brought up goats? From my experiences, I believe goats is one of your best deterrents. After all, they do stay on their hind legs and reach as high as they can, and nothing burns anywhere where a goat has been. We've seen it right here across the street on Sebastopol Road, where there's plenty of goats there. And we also saw them being effective off of Calistoga Road underneath the 2020 across the street from Maria Carrillo. So really taking into account that our goal is to reduce the carbon emissions, it really feels that we're going against our long-term, but also it's been clearly said, we don't want to burn down Santa Rosa. So I understand why we're moving in this direction, but I'm thinking maybe not in 2021, but looking towards 2022. Can we look further into alternatives?
So I will say that the city has utilized goats before. We used them in Howard Park. There is additional work that needs to be done in Howard Park, and that's definitely something that we can explore. I was kind of joking, but also at the same time relatively serious in the fact that we actually, in my opinion, don't seem like we actually have enough goats locally. As silly as that sounds, we have actually heard from community members that they couldn't get them fast enough. And it actually was causing an issue for us last year where property owners that and HOAs that submitted their plans to utilize goats in lieu of landscapers actually were out of compliance or a weed abatement ordinance because there was such a backlog locally within our county for moving goats from project location to project location. So it has been kind of a fine balancing act. There's like Quayside Technology, I believe, now has goats on their property full time. That's their commitment to doing their part to again reduce the gases, but that ties up one potential business. So there's a lot of need for it. There's a lot of desires for it, and we continue to help educate people about their uses.
If I may, Mayor, maybe if we do think or consider fees in regards to the permit process, maybe this will motivate the property owners to look towards the implementation of goats. And that's more of a comment than a question. Thank you.
And then circling back to one of the earlier comments, so the vast majority of these 5 acre plus lots are open space lots where it is neighbors actually or residents and homeowners chipping in and being assessed to do the work that they've done in there thus far. I know for me personally, it was a little frustrating after the 17 fires where I saw how much money that community, especially in Fountain Grove, had chipped into their HOAs and their open space associations to mitigate the fuels that they had thus far. I remember the Today Show setting up their studio on Thomas Lake Harris by Paradise Ridge Winery and making a comment to us about how this community should have and could have done more to prevent it. And us being able to physically turn around and say, you see that hillside, this community, these neighborhoods have spent millions and millions of dollars over the last year out of their own pocket to do as much good as they could have done. And it was frustrating to see all that work they did, didn't pay off. We're hopeful that this will give them the ability to get a little bit more done than they've been able to over the last several years.
All right, any additional questions? We'll go to public comment then. Folks are interested in speaking, go ahead and hit the raise hand feature on Zoom. We'll start with Bruce.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, I'm Bruce McConnell, the president of the Fountain Grove 2 Open Space Maintenance Association. And a lot of this does involve us. We have about 220 acres up in the Fountain Grove, pretty much running from the Montecito side down close to Shenate, all the way up to Parker Hill, and then out Parker Hill and around Crown Hill. So a lot of acreage that we maintain. I'll just touch on a couple of things that were mentioned, and I think right now I'll just say that if anyone is interested in coming up and taking a look, Paul Lowenthal knows how to get a hold of us, and we could put something together so you could get a better idea of the challenges that we've been facing. And I do want to thank Paul for sticking with us and getting this to this point. It's been talked about and worked on for a long time. About 90% of our property is in a WUI area, which means undeveloped land butts up against developed land. It's where the fire comes in. And we have spent, and just as an example, last year we spent close to $700,000, and that came out of the homeowners' pockets. And these are people that are trying to rebuild their homes. To clear burned area, to clear chaparral areas, to clear weed abatement. It starts in the spring, and last year ran all the way until the first rain. And we cleared probably close to 150 acres. We still have some more, and we'll be going after that in August, when the nesting season for birds has ended. And that's one of the things that we have a problem with, is trying to manage not hurting the environment, nesting season. We have sensitive plants. You know, we've looked at goats. Well, goats don't, they're not too discretionary. They'll eat everything. And so, you know, you end up butting up against things. Am I out of time here?
Yep. Thank you so much, Bruce. We appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm seeing no other hands for this item. Dina, did we have any voicemail messages?
We did not receive any before the 5 p.m. cutoff yesterday.
Great, then I'll bring it back for council members. Are there any final questions or final thoughts? Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you. And I wanted to say thank you for clarifying that a lot of these lots are not solely privately owned, that they're communal spaces or communally cared for. I think that that makes this a little bit more understandable. Thanks.
All right, and I wanted to say thank you too, Paul. I know you've been working on this for quite a while. I share some of the frustration that I think I'm hearing from council members of our competing interests, our competing goals on meeting our greenhouse gas emission goals that we've set for ourselves and that we know that we need to hit, as well as our fire safety goals that we also know that we need to hit. And for me, that just means that we need to be bold in our greenhouse gas reductions where we can, as well as getting our carbon sequestration program really ramped up so that way we can try to achieve both of those outcomes. And so I'll be supporting this here tonight as well. Councilmember Sweathelm, I think you have the item.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Paul, for that presentation. And going along with what the mayor just said, you know, it's clear the trauma that this community has received since 2017. And a lot of people are going, what have you been doing to prevent this from happening in the future? And this is what it looks like. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. If we could do something that wouldn't have any negative impact to the environment, I think we're all on board, but I really appreciate the time and energy that not only the fire department, but also the residents of this community have come together to come up with something like this. So with that, I will move an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa, adding Chapter 9-28 to Title 9, Health and Safety of the Santa Rosa City Code pertaining to fuels, mitigation, pile burning, and waive further reading of the text.
Second. So that was a motion by Councilmember Sweathelm, seconded by Councilmember Tibbetts. Let's go ahead and call the roll.
Councilmember Tibbetts?
Aye.
Councilmember Schwedhelm?
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming?
Aye.
Councilmember Alvarez?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rogers?
Aye.
Mayor Rogers?
Aye.
That motion passes with 7 ayes.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Paul, good work. So that was our last item on the agenda for tonight. We don't have any public hearings, no additional written communications. I did want council, as we adjourn for tonight, to just mention that we are now 1 year in on our shelter in place. It's something that's been very devastating to our community, and I hope you'll join me in adjourning tonight in the memory of the 308 people who have lost their lives due to COVID throughout Sonoma County. It's something that I know a lot of us are thinking about each and every day, is how to get our hands around the pandemic and make sure that life can resume safely. And obviously, 308 folks, 308 families in our whole community has been impacted. So on that note, we will adjourn tonight. Yes, Stephanie.
Are you going to do the second public comment period?
I thought we were out of voicemails for that already, since we started after 5 o'clock.
We did play the voicemails, but I don't know if you need to take public comment again, live public comment.
Sue, do you want to make a ruling here?
Sure. No, there's no need. If we, the second listing for public comments on non-agenda matters, or for folks that were not, that did not, if we had people who were not able to speak during the first period, then we hold the second, but we don't have to reopen at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Great. And on that note, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.